Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join the NJBIA Women's Business Leadership Forum with our panel of leaders as we explore the challenges and strategies for individuals to maintain a healthy work-life balance while prioritizing our overall well-being. It's a mouthful, right? We are joined today with Dawn Fitch. She's the president of Pooka Pure and Simple. Robyn Greenberg, regional retail manager for the North Jersey Coast region of TD Bank. Michele Wispelwey, co-founder and president of FemGevity. And I'm Dr. June DePonte Sernak, statewide diversity leadership officer for the Center for Family Services, serving as your moderator. All the full bios are available online and in your program books. So let's get started. So McKinsey & Company recently launched their 10th annual study, Women in the Workplace. Over the past decade, there have been important gains for women at every level at the corporate pipeline, particularly in senior leadership. The progress matters. Research shows that companies with more women in leadership benefit greater innovation, healthier cultures, and stronger performance. Today, women make up about 29% of C-suite positions compared to just 17% in 2015. However, only about 7% of those roles are filled by women of color. So the study shares that fewer companies are investing in career development and sponsorship programs that address the unique challenges of women and women of color. So ladies, what are some of the best practices that you've seen in creating a healthy work environment for all women to thrive?
Who's taking it?
I'm gonna go first. I'll go.
Go for it.
Got it. Well, I come from a different perspective because I am a small business owner. So I went to school for graphic design. I basically got sick, was diagnosed with MS, and developed healthy, clean products. And it's been 24 years since I've had my product company. So I am in full entrepreneur wellness mode. And I guess things like that are very hard. Well, not very hard, but you have to be very, you really have to plan for that for a small business to build. And I mean, our staff we're under 10. So, but I've built a business around wellness, and people are like, oh, that's great. You never have to go in. You can sleep all day. No, that's not how small business works. But I think one of the most important things is to build a culture around wellness. For me, it was easy because my business was built because I have MS. So everything I do is surrounded about health, wellness. So I think one of the biggest things that corporations or small businesses could do is acknowledge wellness and build it into the culture so that people don't feel like, well, I can't say that here. I can't take a second and step away and do some meditation, or, there's nothing for me here until I leave home. That's when I unwind. So for us, it was really important to build a culture right from the beginning with a lot of wellness practices around it. So people know, one, their boundaries. They know when they're not feeling well. They know when they need some space, when they need some time. Something we've done is cross-train each other. So everybody knows how to do. Now, this is a small business, but everybody knows how to do everybody's job. And we sort of break it into quadrants. So if somebody has got a sick mom or a sick child or something like that, are you going to need the whole day? What are you going to need? Well, no, I can come back in 2 hours. So we know we're doing level 1 and 2 for her today. And I think the people that are building the wellness in now have a sense of, okay, this is what I need to do to support her. So they feel supported, and then she feels supported because she's able to do what she's got to do. So I think just as women, we can build into our departments, our small businesses, our jobs, just build a wellness foundation from the very beginning.
Am I on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. I would just add to that also, it's about what you as employees do with it. So something can be brought to you, wellness programs, ideas, reminders, make sure you take care of yourself. But unless you're willing to say, I'm going to do this, nobody's going to force it on you. And so first off, I think it's really great that everybody took the time this week to be a part of this organization and a part of this conference. You're saying, I matter. My time and learning and growing and development matters. And I encourage everybody to make sure all of these wellness programs can be out there, but unless you're willing to grab it and take a hold of it, it won't do anything to benefit you. So make sure that you take a hold of it. Make sure if you have people on your teams that they take a hold of it, because there is nothing more important than having that wellness as a part of your daily life, whether it's in the office or at home.
So I just wanted to add, is this Yeah, I just want to add to that. So I'm one of the founders of FemGevity Health, and we are a virtual healthcare company for women using longevity medicine going through menopause and perimenopause, which that is women spend a third of their life or even more. And a majority of the time when you're going through that, it's when you're entering into senior roles, C-suite executive levels, times where you really need to feel their best. And a lot of companies actually don't even have these. It's been so focused on like pregnancy or mental health. But even with mental health with women, when they're going through hormonal changes, you actually, it's not, women are overprescribed SSRIs. I'm not saying that if you're on them, you shouldn't be on them, but it's also you have to peel back the onion. And one of the things that we do is bringing that to employers and giving them a platform for helping their employees have options and education, awareness, and community on what type of testing, what they're supposed to be looking at during this phase of their life. So it's interesting to hear this question because it's like, okay, well, what are you doing? But if you look at it from like a larger perspective of a lot of corporations like TD Bank and especially like banks and Google and Chase, what are they actually doing that is looking for actually solutions, like giving their women opportunities to address, like things like hot flashes and sleepless nights and, frozen shoulders and pains in your hips. And so I think you have to really dig deeper for preventative health and not just kind of like spot treating what it is at that moment, but helping your employees to have options on how they're going to live longer and stay effective in the workforce and to build more senior leadership roles in wellness initiatives and opportunities like that.
Thank you. That's great. And kind of along the same lines, today almost all companies provide critical support for employees who are parents, caregivers, or struggling with health challenges. And some of these benefits are linked to higher rates of happiness and better employee retention. Benefits like these also are especially helpful to women that are more likely to have caregiving responsibilities. So many of us fall in that sandwich generation, caring for children and aging family members. In 2024, 96% of companies offered maternity leave and 93% offered paternity leave as well, as half of the companies offer support for caregivers of sick or elderly adults. And in 1 in 3 offered some sort of compassionate leave, up from 1 to 4 in the previous year. Have you seen any policy changes or procedural changes within your organizations because of some of these things?
So, I mean, we're a startup right now. We're a smaller startup. We've been running for 2 years. But one of the things that we are very focused on is like, I'm not talking politics, but what's been going on in the White House and Jill Biden and Maria Shriver pushes a lot of things. And there isn't policy changes, but there's been, $1 billion contributed right now in the works for women's health initiatives. And I think that is coming. It's going to have to come at some point, just because it's spoken about so much. And but it's also like a mindset as well. And I think an openness and a willingness to, to ask for it. And I think it's going to be about more women being leaders and advocating that your health as a woman is your superpower and it's your greatest gift and asset and you are worthy of it and you deserve it. And it's not just about, ED and testosterone, but it has to also change the way our healthcare system is as well, which is like, beyond moving the Titanic. So it's also being an advocate for preventative health and chronic disease and not so spot treating. So I think that is going to be in tandem with policy changes, the healthcare system and women being able to speak and advocate for that.
I'm part of TD Bank. It's a big organization with a lot of employees and a lot of structured HR policies and procedures. But I will say, I've been with the bank 23 years. I'm proud every day to put I almost said my TD shield, and then I didn't feel it there, to put my TD shield on. And one of the reasons is because of our ability to stay with the times and to really understand the changes that are happening to our employees and what does that mean that we need to do to help them with the changes that are happening in their lives. And whether it's, paid parental leave that recently went up. I think we give now 16 weeks for male or female who have a new baby. And this is not me plugging TD Bank. Everybody apply to work for TD Bank because we're the most amazing organization. But I think that if you're a small business owner or you work for an organization, you also can be a part of change can happen. And so, yes, I believe we have seen changes that coincide with changes that are happening in our environment in order to have better, productive, healthier employees who at the end of the day help the organization do what they're looking to do. And so it's all about being able to stay current and really invest in the people who are giving back to you.
And I feel like piggybacking on both of those things, I feel like for women, this is the time that we need to drive the narrative. We need to almost demand self-care. There's so many things that we all do at home for self-care, whether it's aromatherapy or taking a walk or things like that. And then we go into the office or into an environment and we sort of just, shut down. We have to demand that these type of things are available to us, the time for these type of things. The self-care can't stop when we get into the office. And we all know the things that help. Like I'm sitting here right now hoping like, oh my God, please don't let me have a hot flash. I will fall apart right here. But those are things that are real for us, going into a meeting and you're sweating and people are like, oh, she's stressed, like, have a flash. So, I mean, but those are things that make me worry. And I think we have such power to drive self-care into the workplace. We have things that we can do, things that we can, and it doesn't even have to be a demand. Sometimes it's just an awareness. Like, oh, all right, if that's what you want, during lunch we can do some yoga or some stretching, or we can have a private area where you can go and do some meditation or some affirmations. But it may not just come generically. It's going to come from us going in there and saying, look, this might be a good idea. And, it can help all employees and, lift the whole boat. So I think we can drive that narrative right now.
I think that's key right there, Dawn. It doesn't just have to be about you. It can be about also for the betterment of others, because if you're going through something, somebody else might be going through the same thing. And if as women, we're not prepared to raise our hand and say this is needed, then it might not happen.
And I just wanted to add to this briefly. Working for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Service, as mental health comes into play with this, there's terminology and verbiage that need to be changed. So we have an aggressive FMLA policy in the state of New Jersey. However, for miscarriage and stillbirth, you do not get bereavement leave. It's listed as family medical leave. So yes, you can take sick leave, you can take time, but that doesn't really address the loss of bereavement. So one of the things that we're trying to advocate for within organizations is to take a little bit of a different approach to bereavement leave. We have 9 million people in the state of New Jersey that speak over 150 different languages with different ethnicities and religions that all have different requirements. If you have an organization that hasn't looked at their employee handbook since the beginning of time and you get 3 days off for immediate family, that's super great, but I have people in my life that I'm so much more passionate about to be a provider of care to that I would need a little bit more time than that. And depending on what my spiritual beliefs are, your days off might look very different. So these are some of the other things that we talk about managing that balance. It's how do we advocate for those types of things and give people the respect that they need to really adjust to things and heal properly. So that's these aren't easy conversations, but they're conversations that we need to think about the verbiage that we're using. I speak to women a lot that are afraid to even say, I'm going through this at this particular time because I don't want to take time off or I don't want to get reprimanded.
Yeah, we have this stigma in our culture that asking for help is a sign of weakness. But I tell my children that asking for help is a sign of strength and courage and stability, because you're smart enough and you have the emotional intelligence to know that you don't know something and you need help, and knowledge is power and you get wisdom from others. As a founder of a femtech startup, I beg for help every day to some of my mentors, and it has helped me grow as a person professionally and personally. And I just feel that it's hard to request help. And, organizations are only as healthy as like the employees, right? And if, especially like mentally, physically, spiritually, religiously, whatever it is, but you need that strength from the people who are the foundation and their pillars for an organization to grow and be strength. Look at some of the biggest corporations that are, have terrible leaders. They're, toxic places to be at. So, yeah.
I want to share just a brief personal story that I don't often share with a microphone in my hand, but I'm going to right now because the conversation of bereavement leave and asking for help and saying you need help was so personal to me. 12 years ago, my father, at the age of 62, I wish I had a fan for you right now. You're safe. You're safe.
Can help you.
12 years ago, my dad, at a very young age, had a massive heart attack and died. And I thought that I would be able to take my, religious way of grieving. And I was home for a week, and I had gotten, I think at that time we were only giving 5 days of bereavement. And I came back on day 6 or 7. And I thought the world was great. And I could put that off to the side, and I could continue on with my 4 young kids and my husband and my house and all of the stuff that we just do because we're programmed to just keep doing and doing. And so that was in April. Sometime the middle of May, something happened at work and I lost it. And I'm a crier to begin with. And so when something goes wrong, I really cried and I cried and I cried. And I finally said, I can't keep functioning at this pace. I haven't really grieved that the most important man in my life was gone. And I'll never forget having to walk into my manager's office and say, I love this place. I've been here for, I guess at the time, I'd been there for 12 years already, but I need to get help. And I ended up taking 10 weeks off. And I was thankful that I worked for an organization where I was able to do that because I needed to focus on my mental health. And in that moment, I was scared and I wasn't sure how it would be perceived, right? Some people take 5 days off from work when their parent dies and they come back and they're just fine. I wasn't one of those people. I was one of those people who needed things different, and raising my hand was hard. I was scared about how it would be perceived. I was scared about when I came back, what people would be saying about me. And guess what? That ended up being the turning point in my career. Because when I did come back, I was ready, I was focused, and I said, you know what? I've been in this role now for 10 or 12 years. It's time to do something else because now I have that drive and I have that excitement, and I was able to move into a completely different role, do something new, and feel really good about making the decision for what I needed and not what everybody else needed or wanted from me.
No, that's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And may I piggyback
Sure.
on that? So I'm reading a book right now. It's actually called Stop Pleasing. It's by Stop Pleasing.
Oh,
Yes.
Mm.
So, and I've been on my
definitely need that book.
So I've been on my own personal journey on just doing things to not for the comfort of others, but for the comfort of myself. And it's okay to have your own boundaries. And I think as women, especially in the workforce, when you're trying to you're climbing up the ladder and you're, at the height of your career, you do things out of the comfort of what other people think, what they're going to say, how your friends or your spouse or whomever is going to feel about you. And there is a great need. And I think this is a big part of having like wellness in the workforce, is because it's okay to make decisions based on your comfort level, your boundaries. And you know that you're making the right decision for yourself when it feels uncomfortable, when you feel the discomfort to make a choice to move forward because it's hard and you're doing it for the good of yourself, and that's going to affect somebody else. And I just want to piggyback off of that. Just what you said is just because it's that happens so much and no one talks about it. And personally and professionally. You just make a lot of choices, the benefit of others before yourself, because you don't want to disappoint, especially in a professional environment.
And I will share, when I did go through those couple of months of being off, I was no problem saying I was seeing a therapist, and she looked at me and she said, the next 8 weeks or 10 weeks, it's not about cleaning out your garage, and it's not about, I'm a runner, it's not about picking a marathon and going out and running. It's about sitting on the couch with a remote control in your hand and just pressing the button, and not having to plan what you're doing next, where you need to be, which kid do you need to pick up. It's not about being super mom. She said it's about finding super Robyn. And that's how I spent that time. And yeah.
I'm a big fan of therapy and getting that help. And I think these are great. The next question really is about boundaries. And there are a lot of microaggressions that women face in the workplace. And they're really detrimental because not only do they put us in awkward positions, but they erode our sense of belonging. They make it harder to bring our whole selves to work. And then as we achieve goals and we achieve our own things that we're interested in doing, whether it's education goals, whether it's financial goals, whether it's starting a business, sometimes not everybody's on the same elevator with us as we're moving up a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about the boundaries that you've had to set? Because I think it's an important topic, because sometimes people say, well, I can't not speak to that person, or I'm related to that person and they're not really affirming what I need to happen, but I don't want to be rude. A lot of times women don't want to be rude, but that's where we are.
Sometimes you have to be rude.
Right. So what types of boundaries have each of you set for yourselves as you've been moving through all of this?
I can say for my business locally, we've built such a local following. It's been 24 years. I like to say I started when I was 2, but that's not true. But it's been 24 years, and we've built a local following. We've done so many festivals, and I speak and go to schools. So I know a lot of people. And I think because of that, now the flip side, the wonderful part of it is they support us. They support my business, and, I'm a part of their lives. We do workshops together. But the flip side is, you see somebody and you're sitting down having coffee, and like, hey, Dawn, do you know where my order is? Nope, I'm having coffee with this person. So there's a lot of, it's creating boundaries in your business, at your job, at your workplace, where you don't want to alienate people, because I love the fact that they're supporting my business, but I can't always be accessible to everything you want. Whenever I'm here, just come by and interrupt who I'm speaking to. So I've definitely had to create boundaries. And I think the easiest way to do is to almost have a planned conversation in your head. So I know that happens to me a lot. So if you're looking for an order, not to say we're always late on orders, but if you're looking for an order, I say, well, that's not something I do right now, but, go through the chat on the website or send an email. And then, if you have a problem, you can't get through, then send me an email, send it to info. That comes to me, but that goes to everybody. But I think when we think of things like that, we have to almost create the narrative of what we're going to say when people overstep the boundary. And I think the reason why our boundaries break down is because we're never prepared for what we're going to say. It's just like, so then we just, okay, and we just do whatever it is that they're asking. So I think having that conversation up front in your head of how do I make sure that my boundaries are not, stepped over is really important and key.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned is to be very intentional with your time and very specific and carve it out, because it's very easy, especially as small businesses and startups, it's very easy to get lost and wear, 12 hats and do everything. And you really have to make time for, yourself, and scheduling it and being disciplined and consistent and have rituals, and not let it always bleed over and, kind of like pleasing everybody. I, learned the hard way very early in my career. I was in the laboratory world, and it was like every client that called, no matter it was like a Sunday at 8 p.m. or like 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, I took the call because I was like, I don't want to lose their business, and I need their business, and I need to like make sure they like me. But it's I think when you're very transparent with people and you're like, I can't do this right now, I will do it tomorrow because I am with, my kids or my family, or I'm working on this. I carve out time where I'm like, okay, this is an hour to work on legal obligations, or, this is 3 to 4 is to work on marketing stuff. So it just to be very, and stay accountable for that in time of being intentional.
I'm probably not very good at setting boundaries. I'm just going to be honest, because I try to be available for my team. And it's different. We're open 7 days a week, and we're open early in the morning and some later evenings. But I do try, when it comes to setting boundaries, if I'm in the middle of one thing and somebody else needs me, I do ask the question frequently, is it an emergency or can I call you back? Right? I'm convinced that my phone will ring one day. It'll be one of the stores calling me and I don't grab it and there was a robber. Right? Like, I'm in my mind when my phone rings and it's a manager, I'm convinced that it's a robbery, right? Like, that's always where my head goes. And I'm convinced if I don't grab the call, at least to say, is it an emergency or can I call you back? And that to me is my boundary of being able to differentiate in that moment. Is it more important what I'm doing, or is it more important for me to talk to somebody on the team? Randy and Leonora are part of my team here. I'm just curious if you would agree. I mean, I try being available, but I also know that sometimes it doesn't work. The other thing that I've started doing recently is, look, this idea of work-life balance, I really like that the new phrasing is work-life integration. And I just learned that recently, that that's the new way of calling work-life balance, because that is what I do, is I integrate my work and my personal life. Sometimes when I'm physically at work, I have to do life. And sometimes when I'm physically at home or at life, I have to do work. And that's how I make it work. In the past, I've always been brutally honest with my team. And as my kids have gotten a little bit older, I'm trying to include them in those boundaries also. My 4 kids will call my phone all day long if I would answer it every single time they called, right? Like, I don't know what I did wrong in parenting, but they feel the need for mom to know every single thing that they're doing, which is better than the alternative, I have realized. I'd rather them be calling. But I've recently started sending them a message in the morning. I have a meeting from 9 to 11. Unless it's an emergency, please wait until afterwards to call me. And that's something I hadn't been doing. I had been so focused on, when I'm with them, trying to have that boundary with my team, but it really goes both ways. Emma, I love you. I don't need to know that you're walking to class right now. I'm certainly there for you if you need me for something, but during these hours today, I'm really busy at work and we'll need to talk to you later. And it's actually helped me. It really has helped with the boundaries going on both sides.
Yeah, I think I've learned to unfollow and block in real life as much as I have on social media. And some of those people are family members. But I just needed to know, like, my energy was protected at that particular time and place. And I think these are all the things that when you have to make decisions about what it is that you're doing. I know when my daughter was young, I stayed in a role where I had more flexibility with my day, so I didn't miss something with her. And then once she was kind of a little bit more settled, I was able to then say, well, now it's time for me to take a different type of role. So again, yes, you're right. It's about that. You can have it all, just not all at once.
Yep.
So one of the things that I also love about these questions is the term only. So being an only, frequently one of the only people of your gender or race in a room at work, continues to be a really common experience for women. Women are just as likely to be an only as they were in 2018. 1 in 5 today say they're the onlys for their gender, and 2 in 5 are the onlys for their race. As in the past, women who are onlys encounter more microaggressions, which also profoundly detract from their workplace experiences. And on top of this, onlys are more likely to feel that they are under additional scrutiny at work. So what types of things have you done in your strategies and your practices when the pressure starts to really take its toll, both physically and emotionally on you? What are some of the things that you've done?
So from the emotional side of it, I read, what was her name? It was also a book. I read too. The Facebook operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, right? Was that it? Yeah. Sheryl Sandberg. So I read her book, and something that I really learned from her book was about women needing to recognize that you earned your seat at the table. It was not luck. You were not just in the right place at the right time. You were not just having the good moment. You earned your seat. And if I'm surrounded in a place where I feel like I'm an only, or in my world, I happen to be surrounded by a lot of females, so I don't typically feel that way. But I do find myself questioning, oh my gosh, how did I get to this place? Like, I can't believe that I was sitting last week with the CEO of TD Bank. Like, that blew my mind. And then I had to stop and I had to say to myself, I earned it. I worked really, really hard for the last 23 years. I made a difference and I earned this spot. And so that's the emotional, the emotional piece of what I do if I'm in an environment where I'm thinking, do I belong, or questioning it? And there's no doubt that men tend, not always, but tend to feel more confident and have that feeling of I earned it. Maybe more so than they should, but certainly more than women tend to feel that they earned it. And then from a physical perspective, I don't know that I've been in that environment, so I don't think that I'm the right person to answer that question.
Yeah, I love this question. So I spent, majority of my career, all of it, with men in the medical world. And I always felt that, I built, a really big book of business, and I always felt that it was just luck, and that I always gave everyone else credit for everything that I had achieved. And I always underestimated of just like the power that, I had and what I was genuine worthy of. And I think it takes a lot of courage and brevity to know that you actually did that yourself and built it yourself. And, you have because you also have to have a lot of emotional intelligence for it as well. And so I think that you're afraid to give yourself credit because it's almost like you have like ego. But I think everybody needs a little bit of ego to believe in themselves. And I think that's like totally acceptable. And physically, I am a big person on like sauna and meditation and relaxation and being good to yourself, treating yourself to a massage, and whether it's like a 20-minute neck massage where you're getting your nails done, or throwing something at your husband, or, just kidding, sort of. But yeah, things like that.
I definitely get the feeling of sometimes I am the other. I mean, when I look around this room, as far as women of color, sometimes we're not always in the room. And I think it sometimes will make me overcompensate and want to let everybody, I'm here. We get it, Dawn, you're here. But, but I think it's more of an opportunity to have conversations like, hey, how can we get more in the room? And I also have to learn to realize that I'm not out of the room. I wasn't not let in the room. It's just that we're coming into the room slowly, and the room is welcoming, and this room is welcoming, and we need to see more faces in the room. So when I look at, and it's not just women of color, it's sometimes in manufacturing, I can be the only woman when I talk to my vendors in small business. So I think we're all have an opportunity or a time when we are the only. But I turn around and look at it as an opportunity to bring other people in, to let people who are in the room say, like, look, you're going to start seeing more of us in this room. You're going to see more women business owners, more entrepreneurs and vendors and things like that. So I tend to look at it as an opportunity. And I always like to tell people, too, when I'm part of a room that maybe somebody comes in and they feel other, to make sure that I'm welcoming, to make sure that I'm saying like, hey, glad you're here, come on in. And, you usually find that you find more of that, people that are welcoming and, want to bring you into the room. So don't definitely go into your head and like, oh my gosh, I'm the other. It's an opportunity to introduce that other to people who may not, know you were there before, so.
Yeah, as somebody who I worked in telecom for 25 years and was always the other and the only. I'm a Native American, African American, and Italian American, so I really am the poster child of the BIPOC community. So I would start off every one of my meetings literally reciting my resume as to why I believe I needed to be there. And then I was like, what am I doing? So whoever invented imposter syndrome needs to be plucked in the head. I think that that's the worst term that we can ever get, and I think we should here and now forever take that out of our vocabularies and just know that we're intersectional and that we can be a lot of different things in a lot of different spaces, but being an imposter is not one of them. So does everybody agree on that one? Take that out of your vocabularies. Perfect.
Being the other is actually empowering.
Sure.
And I think you embrace it as just being a complete lion and a leader.
Absolutely. And I think those are the things that we have to continue to realize and advocate, especially when we're bringing other people up with us throughout this journey as well. So, career advancement is part of this. And when we think about it's really a core expectation of managers to think about what their career advancement looks like. And now more companies are also asking managers to foster that really inclusion in their employee well-being. So it's critically important to the health of the organization. So while managers invest in all these areas for employees, it is also burnout that's starting to really creep into a lot of roles. We see it in our healthcare space. We see it in so many different roles that we have. We know that people need to be happier, in general in our lives, and they think more about leaving their organizations when they start to feel like the burnout is there. So what are some of the signs of recognizing burnout for yourselves or for your team members in your organizations or the communities that you serve that you're starting to see are happening?
So it's an interesting question for us because we see a lot of women, C-suite level, senior leadership role women, and the burnout starts with your health. And it's not even so much the work, but it's how you feel, right? Because your body just is like breaking down and you're not taking care of yourself. Just like you have to water a plant, you really have to water and feed yourself too. And so I think the burnout is having an issue with like health equality. And there's, you see so many programs, and one of the panels yesterday they spoke about DEI, but where's the DEI for health equity? And focusing on that, because I think if you're taking care of your health, you're going to see a lot less burnout in women. And being here and having our table has been really interesting because pretty much almost every woman has come up to us, been like, I have hot flashes, my joints hurt. I've been post-menopause for a couple years. Now it's all coming back and it's hard for me to like sit through meetings. So, and that is going to cause complete burnout and take you out of, days out of work, employee retention, all of that. So, just from my standpoint as, being what we do and what we stand for, I think that's where the root cause of a lot of the burnout is.
I also think that we have to start recognizing burnout in ourselves before we get burnt out. Because I think there are a lot of signs we push through so much, but changes in your diet or appetite, when you lose interest in your job, when you really don't feel like going in, when you start becoming late, when you're not passionate about it. I think we put it under, we're tired. But there are really specific things that we can see, like a change in our own personality. And when you it usually phases and steps to that burnout part, because when we actually get to burnout, it's a wrap. Like game's over. Yeah, game's over. We're staying home. We're in the bed. So I think we have to learn to look for those signs and honor them. Hey, I'm really losing interest in this. Am I losing interest, or am I just so overworked and overwhelmed that I'm starting to burn out? So I think we have to start having those conversations with ourselves and look for those levels before we get to complete burnout, and then we're burning the place down.
Which goes back to those boundaries.
Boundaries,
right?
Exactly.
I think, too, it used to be that you need to stay in a job for a long time. I know you were saying that you've been at TD Bank for quite some time. My husband's been at Estee Lauder for 30 years. I switch jobs every 5 years. I feel like there's a new set of eyes that need to see things and that I need to continue to learn and develop. And I've changed roles completely, which has also been good and bad because some things I was prepared for and some things I wasn't. But somebody once told me that in your journey, some days you're the one that plants the seed. Some days you're the ones that water the flowers. Some days you're the ones that mow the garden. You don't have to stay for the entire season. Somebody else can come in and take up that next step and continue to grow that garden and make sure that it's something that blossoms fully, but you don't have to be the one to do all those types of things. So I think that's another important thing to think about.
And a little funny thing, sometimes if you get burnt out, sometimes then you're the weed. Okay, you need to be plucked from the job.
Exactly.
burnout, you can turn into that person.
Exactly.
Another flash coming on.
Yeah. So there are practical steps you can take to further drive, progress in some of these areas that we were talking about, especially when we're looking at advancement and fostering well-being. So, if you had a roadmap, what would you do to really identify ways that help you really feel fulfilled as you're kind of nesting your professional and personal careers?
We had a roadmap.
I've been thinking a lot about this because I thought, what, if somebody had told me these things years ago, what would I do differently? I thought that success was financial. I thought that success was a corner office with my name on the door. And once I had that, I realized that wasn't it. So I think it's the definition of what I now believe success to be. And health and well-being is at the top of the list.
A couple of things that I would do. I'm thinking of it now, like if I knew then what I know now, or what I've learned over the years, I stick to 3 main principles that I follow throughout certainly my professional life. And one is to be open and honest. We were talking about transparency and boundaries with the people who you work for the people who work for you, for your peers, for your family, right? Make sure that it's known. I don't keep secrets from my manager. I don't keep secrets from my team. If I have to take a few hours to go be on the football field, that's what I'm doing. But not having that anxiety, oh my gosh, what if they find out? What if they find out where I am? That really has changed for me and has been extremely helpful. So that would be the first, would be that transparency. The second one would be recognize that you can't do it all on your own. Maybe 30 years ago, somebody could have been in my role and they could have had 4 kids and a husband and tried taking care of themselves by themselves, but not anymore. And it's okay to ask for help. Whether the help is from somebody on your team, whether the help is from somebody personally. They say it takes a village, and the way that we work in the world these days with constant connectivity, instant gratification with responses, like you need to be comfortable asking for help. And I feel like maybe I do that more than I should, but I definitely do that. And I just want to see what the third one is. Oh, I have the third one written down. Understand that this idea of balance or integration, it changes all the time. And there are going to be some days where you feel like your priority needs to be here, whether this is personal and your professional goes down here, and then other days where it goes up like this. And only you can figure out what that feeling of comfort is for you, because it will be different for you than it is for you. And you need to be able to acknowledge that you're going to have this up and down sometimes. And sometimes you might feel like the scale is balanced, but take a quick walk and it'll change so quickly. And so that's sort of my 3 things that I try to follow and that I would encourage others to do.
That was awesome. One of what I would suggest for a roadmap, and I think everyone's roadmap is completely unique and personalized to you, and it should be based on what your passion is and what makes you completely exist. Really just effortless existence. And if that feels like effortless existence to you, then that's your roadmap. And everything you should do is driven deep within your own passion and thesis in life.
I think for me, what I would do differently is I would allow, and I think we can allow, self-care and wellness to lead the ship. I think when we're younger, it's I got to get this job, I want to go here, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, we can pivot, we can quit, we can walk away. I think self-care and just self-perseverance and wellness, we can lead with that. I don't like it here. I'm not well here. I am not thriving here. I'm not giving here. So I can quit. I can walk away. I can pivot. I can change. I think that's what I would do differently. I stayed in doing things that I didn't really want to do and making myself unwell versus, hey, I'm not well here. Let's find out where you can go and thrive and be happy. So I think going forward, I would let self-care and, not just I'm going to get a massage. I quit because I'm going to get a massage. But really in my life thinking like, where am I going to thrive most, be healthiest and happiest, and allowing myself to make a decision based on that and be okay with it and not have to explain it to anyone. So.
Wait, massage has come up twice now, so I just have to share this because I think everybody can benefit from this. A massage to me has always been like very enjoyable when I'm doing it, but it's an hour and then you have to shower because you're greasy and all of that stuff. And it ends up being like a 2-hour thing to get a massage. And even though I've always felt great while getting the massage, I just discovered these places where they do 30-minute foot rubs. You don't have to shower afterwards. You don't get undressed to do it. Has anybody that? Yep. Right. Okay. So some people, there's a place I live in Cherry Hill. It's called Foodie Rudy. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but it is like this room, this size, and they have maybe 15 chairs and they have buckets and you put your feet in the bucket with warm water and it's like a 30-minute thing and you can run in and those 30 minutes I get a recharge. So if you guys are ever wondering where I am, it's possible that I'm having a 30-minute recharge and it doesn't have to be a whole long drawn out thing.
Let's meet at lunch for Foodie Rudy's, everybody.
Highly recommend Foodie Rudy to everybody.
There's I need to go there. And I'm a big fan of anytime I get my nails done, I'm like, I'll take a 20-minute neck and shoulder rub and add 10 minutes to it. So there's something called Essentialism by someone named Greg McEwen. He talks about it a lot, and I'm a big advocate of it. And it just talks about everything that you do is really about what drives you, what makes you tick in the most efficient way, and doing it in a very small, scalable way, which is really should be guided by your roadmap and not going, out of staying in your lane, not going out of your road, and being very ritualistic about it. Mm-hmm. So it just, he has some great podcasts too about it.
We have 3 Native American tribes in New Jersey, and my family is part of the Powhatan, Lenape, and the Nanticoke and Lenape tribes. And so I really follow my roadmap as purpose, and it really is everything that you do is for the next 7 generations. So it makes it really easy for you to do the right decisions if you think about how your footprint is going to really impact people in the next 7 generations. It really causes you not to rear off too far to the right or the left, because you know that, so where we are today is cleaning up things from 7 generations ago. So if we can continue to do that and be good humans, and also surround yourself with people that bring you joy and light. I think that's been another thing that I would tell my younger self should tell my adult self, that some of those people that were just in your life for a season, I could have done without that lesson. So as we kind of get into audience participation, I just want to ask one quick question. I know we talked a little bit about some books that each of you have read. Is there any one standout book that we can share with everybody that was an inspiration to you? I have Dr. David Livermore's Leading with Cultural Intelligence. I think that's a great way to put things into perspective about how culture works in your organization and within your life. Is there any other?
I love the Sheryl Sandberg book. It gave me a lot of inspiration and confirmation of the way that we do things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mine is goofy. I was going to say The Essentials of Aromatherapy. Yeah. But I take like a little, usually I have a little lavender, a little peppermint, a little, that's my thing that I carry with me. Like that's my emergency kit. So I'm always reading aromatherapy books, and I pick one up at Barnes and Nobles. It's really, really helpful.
Right. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I have so many. I would essentialism, clear thinking. I'm reading a really amazing gut health book right now, which I can't even remember. I read like a stack of 6 books, and I like do little pages. I'm a big podcast person, big on like the Knowledge Project, Greg McEwen, Yap, Peter Attia, Andrew Huberman, just a lot. So
great. Well, thank you, all of you, really, for your insight and your incredible candor today. We do have a few minutes to take some questions from the audience. So Anybody have any questions you'd like to come up to a microphone and share with our panel?
Don't all jump at once.
Sure.
So menopause and issues in the workplace came up several times in the United States today. So what do we tell our employers to do to accommodate that?
Well, if you ask my 89-year-old mother, she'd go, tell them you're having your own private summer. As I'm...
Should we not ask for opinions on our data?
So, cooling, fans, great. But really the only way that's going to really keep you in that seat at your employer and feeling better is advocating for them to give you access to companies with medical care, right? To diagnose and see what's going on with your hormones. Because whatever is happening to you shouldn't be happening, and it's happening, and it's actually deteriorating your health when your body loses your estrogen and progesterone. It's driving you down the path of like metabolic and cardiovascular and neurocognitive issues. So it's not about, and that's exactly the issue with our healthcare system. It's all spot treating and based on sick care. It's about, they need to advocate for preventative care and bringing solutions into the workforce, whether it's like community webinar, they give you stipends for, your menopausal care, because that is what's going to be your legacy and how you're going to extend your lifespan. Because as you go through hot flashes, it doesn't go away. It's just going to continue to deteriorate. You're born with these hormones, and they protect your body, and they protect you from cancers and developing high cholesterol and cardiac arrhythmias and things like that. So that is really the biggest thing you could advocate for. Sure, working from home is great, a fan, but it's not going to help you from dying young.
Do they list that under the disabilities list? Because I filled out an application for something, and they said list your disability, and I have Hashimoto's thyroid disease, which I've had since I'm 13. They listed chronic illness for thyroid as a disability, and I never really thought of that in that way.
Maybe. I think it really probably goes by state, by employer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, regulations, and things are like constantly changing. So, I mean, I hope they are starting to. That would be amazing.
You had another question?
Mine wasn't really a question. It was more of an observation. First of all, thank you guys very much, because as women, when we're sitting in the office, we all know this is going on. The fact that NJBIA brings something this big to a wider group. And I think one of the things I'm hearing and thinking about is if we had just had the guts when we were younger to do what we knew was right instead of listening to all the BS outside, be like this, be like that, this would be so much further along. And so I guess my question might be is how are we now, other than including our teams, reaching out even further to the younger female generations to say, it's okay to be yourself, be honest, tell the truth. It builds more in you, people respect you more, and you're really not going to get fired. And if you do, you don't want to work there anyway, so create your own business. Go out and be you, and you're going to be so much more successful. So how do we give them the courage to do that at a younger age?
I feel like you just did it.
Yeah.
Right? You just did it with everybody in the room here, and all it takes is paying it forward. And I'm sure that you all have friends, family members, kids with friends with kids, right? Like you keep talking. We're good at that. Women are good at talking, and you keep doing it, and you make sure that your experiences and your stories get told so that one day there can be a young woman who walks in and has a conversation with somebody and says, you had to go through what? Right? So that it's not there anymore, so that we have made the changes that are needed.
Can I say one thing? For this young lady, is there something with human resources where you can have that type of conversation? Because that may be where it needs to start with menopause. Like, you need to understand we're melting at meetings. And it's
I work for large corporations, so it's fine. I was just wondering what others might be doing. And I think to your point, let's just not spot deal with these issues. Let's get
It's a
to the
bigger
root.
conversation.
It's a bigger issue.
I think the other thing too is also thinking about how a lot of women don't know that those things are menopause related.
Exactly.
So we need to have an education about all these types of things. Not everybody grew up in an environment where, a parent went through this and they could share this, or you had legacies of people telling you these things. I'm finding that maternal health numbers in New Jersey for so many different things are really worse than they are in the rest of the country. Black women die of mortality issues for infant mortality 7 times more than white women, and that's just in New Jersey alone. There's a lot of programs that are working on. The Nurture New Jersey program is doing a lot with that, with Tammy Murphy's organization, but there's still so much that women don't know that they have the abilities to ask for those help or ask for their physician's help in these particular areas. So I think that's another area of conversation, is to let people know what their rights are, know that housing is a human right, knowing that 1 in 12 households in New Jersey have food insecurities. That's a huge number in the Garden State, where we literally are built on providing food. So I think we need to have some of those other kind of conversations about what we have at our disposal and who has those resources that can help us out.
Yeah. So one of the things that we actually do at FemGevity is we give webinars and just educational seminars, because a lot of women, especially with menopause, there's 100+ symptoms, from an itchy ear to a frozen shoulder where you think you're having a heart attack, to joint pain, to women that are postmenopausal have a lot of frequent UTIs. They end up going to a urologist and they can't get diagnosed properly. It's because you have vaginal dryness, and these are all things that aren't spoken about. And it's awareness and letting women know that, like, what you're feeling and the risks of sitting in those symptoms. So it's really, so those are some things that, like, we do personally, and they need to be brought more to the employers. And it really depends, like, who's in the seat in HR. Is it a woman? Is it a man? Is it a man that, has gone through that situation with his wife or his sister or whomever? So it's really important.
Wow.
If you're a little younger, don't be scared. There's great things too.
Yeah.
You're going to be empowered. You're going to be able to say no, not just have flash.
I understand the menopause, but I've been dealing with the issue since I'm 17. And I've been dealing with it basically on my own. I've seen medical assistant, and they've helped me as much as they can. But I have not missed a day at work, except for the times when I had to miss for what I'm going through. But other than that, I don't know where else to go for some kind of assistance. I'm not looking for financial assistance, because I've been working full-time all these years. I'm just looking for encouragement to keep going. I don't plan to retire yet because I'm not retirement age, and I'm a little proud, I'm very proud that I could work full-time despite of what I'm going through. But it's not menopausal, but it's something that I was diagnosed at 17, and I basically born with it, and I just dealt with it. I didn't, no one in my family had it, and they couldn't guide me. And when I did go to my pediatrician, because I didn't know where else to go, he sent me to another doctor that said, no, you don't have that. You don't have that problem, just go back to school. Because they took me out of school for a quarter. And so when she said I didn't have it, I just went back and I finished, which I'm happy about. But I never really got it resolved. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know what to do about it at this level. I might not do anything about it because I've lived with it so long, but I don't think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the right answer for people who suffer what I'm suffering, who have gone through what I went through. There's a lot of famous people that have gone through what I've gone through, and I've tried to read their bios to see if there's anything that can help me guide. But there isn't, except for what they write, what they let you know. But I'm not sure.
Are there support groups? Do you know of any support groups for this?
I can look into that. No, I didn't. I don't know if there's any support.
Because sometimes when you find, like, especially for MS, when you find a support group, you'll be astounded at the information that other people have that maybe you haven't had access to or you didn't know where to find. And I'm not saying that you haven't done the work; it's a lifetime, but maybe there is some sort of support group that could, yeah, that could maybe, yeah, and sometimes you may have to create one. You know, you might find other people who have the same thing, and together you guys might find a support group. But it all comes to from sharing your story, advocating. People don't know what you're going. I'm not saying share, you know, that you have to share,
I understand.
but you know what I mean. Maybe you know.
But I had shared, and it's not something that people accept very readily, you know. I've had negative and positive responses or reactions to that. It happened when I was in university, my sophomore year, and when I went back for my junior and senior year, because I insisted on going back. I wanted to finish. I mean, that was my goal, just to finish. Some people didn't talk to me anymore, and some people did. People who did, I still talk to today. That was 42 years ago. Okay, I still talk to those people today. But the people that didn't talk to me then, they were never going to talk to me again. You know, it's nothing. I didn't kill anybody. Okay, it wasn't criminal. You know, I just suffer from bipolar disorder.
I think as a group right now, we should give our friend here some love and support from us. And you're brave for speaking up, and know that you're not alone.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to be here with all of you, and hope you enjoy the rest of your time here. And we look forward to seeing you next year.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.